Today's youth need teachers, volunteers, and most of all, well, they need you. I'm Doug Edwards, and I'm going to be talking with real youth mentors and students to give you the knowledge you need to be the best youth worker possible. This is Youth Worker on Fire.
Oh, you're trying to bring me down and run me out of town. You're taking what you want, but you can't take my rhythm now. I'm walking to my own beat, just gonna be me. I'm not replicating nobody.
Hey everybody, it's Doug Edwards, and we're here again for another episode. And today I'm going to give you a tribute. I'm going to do a shout out, a tribute to my youth pastors. And by the way, they didn't know they were youth pastors. They just thought they were people that loved us and wanted to do programs for us. They would just consider themselves volunteers. I didn't understand anything about all of that at that point. I was a freshman in high school when they started doing this stuff, and they were beyond amazing people because after doing youth ministry for many years and learning under one of the best organizations in the world, it's not that I was the best or took everything from that organization, but what I did after being with a lot of youth pastors and parachurch organizations and seeing all these guys were the top of the heap. Anybody would have wished they had them on their team. And their names are Ronnie and Maxine Kennedy. They had two little boys at the time, young boys, and they probably sacrificed more than they should have. But Ronnie died recently, and I had the privilege of talking to Maxine while she had cancer and before she died. I never saw them again. But several years ago, I think more than 6 years ago now, when she died of cancer, and Ronnie just died a couple of weeks ago. And their two boys are now men with their own families. You know, bivocational pastors, I call them that now, during the Jesus Revolution, which was happening in California, but we were in North Carolina and didn't really know that was happening or what that was. They may have heard of something about what was happening in California, but usually it was negative news on our end of it, very conservative area, and the churches would thought of it as negative, did for many decades after that, and did not know probably about the revival happening in 1970 at Asbury College, which had happened at the turn of last century several times before 1970, and then again this year, right when the Jesus Revolution movies came out about the same week. God has perfect timing, does things his own way. It wasn't a big deal at that college. They knew they were going to be doing a national prayer thing through Asbury University, but they didn't really think that something like that was going to happen. In fact, I saw the devotional the guy did, and it wasn't dynamic. It wasn't all that special. But when he walked off the stage, the students didn't leave, and that lasted for many days, more than a week, maybe 2 weeks, to where they were there around the clock for most of that time, just worshiping God and seeing God move in an incredible way. Yet to Ronnie and Maxine, and from many others, we are indebted to their sacrifices. You know, one time they bought a bus. They bought a bus because they wanted to take us on different trips and things like that. Now, these guys did not have a lot of money. They did not have a big place that they lived in. Yet they invited us over to have meetings at their house, that warm atmosphere. And I think they had some training from Youth for Christ in Winston-Salem, if I'm right, at that time. But I didn't know who that was, what that was. It didn't make any sense to me. But that hung in my mind, and years later, when I was trained by that organization, we were not nearly as grateful to them as we needed to be to such sacrificial people. They died not knowing the magnitude of what their sacrifices created, but now in the presence of Jesus Christ, they are amazed at the rewards, and rewards that are still building, because they led, along with our pastor, I came to know Christ, and so did our pastor's son, but they were our youth workers, our youth pastors without the title that gave of every spare minute of their life to disciple us and to love us and to do musicals with us and take us on retreats. And the church wouldn't even let them have a tax write-off for the bus that they personally bought to take us around in. I'm sure they just didn't understand, but that's what churches do, especially during that time period. It was a real God movement when people would take care of students and in that atmosphere and in their own personal churches. People forgot about letting the little children come to them, to Jesus, because that, for such is the kingdom of God. They forgot about it. They didn't understand that. They didn't remember that. It was a different time, a different era, and so Ronnie and Maxine did not come with a lot of backing, and yet their sacrifice was huge. They were not treated as the heroes that they were on earth, but in heaven they were and will be known among the heroes and saints of old. I know this. How? Because they suffered the little ones to come to them. They suffered us teenagers to come to them as Jesus had done before them. And they prayed and worked with and reached out to teenagers, which few understood or would not even consider them as worthy of time or importance. But Ronnie and Maxine were on a mission, and we've talked about missions here. Not missions like we think about these missionaries that we send out. No, people that God hasn't given a title to, and they don't even know their title. They just know that something inside them says that we've got to serve God. We've got to help people. And those people are on a mission. They're not doing a job. They're not doing a ministry job. They're on a mission for God. That's the only thing I could identify with them as to why they did what they did for us. Church has never seen that large of a student ministry before, and they have not seen one since, unfortunately. They were called for a time so others could live eternally and brought to Christ decades later. It's still growing to reach a lost and dying world. Unsung heroes, visionaries ahead of their time. They looked like normal people, but they were saints of God with a calling much like Jesus and his followers. And remember, Jesus and his followers were not thought of very highly either. They were normal people with God-filled hearts in each one. They gave too much, but it was heaven's gain. Little is much when God is in it. One day, some parents brought their children to Jesus so he could touch and bless them, but the disciples scolded the parents for bothering him. When Jesus saw what was happening, he was angry with his disciples. He said to them, "Let the little children come to me." I'm sure it was in a scolding voice. Don't stop them, for the kingdom of God belongs to those who are like these children. That's in Mark 10, 13, and 14. That was the New Living Testament. Ronnie and Maxine, I know you're in heaven. I know that you know more now than ever before, because now we see through a glass dimly the ancient writings in the New Testament say, but then we will see him face to face and we will understand. We will get it. And so I want you to know that I'm grateful. I'm thankful. And the students that at least I, not counting all the others that have done so many different works that I don't even know about, but heaven knows about, now you know about. But just the few students over the last 40 plus years of my life that came to know Christ because of the ministry God pushed me into and that you prepared me for when I thought I was going to do something else and rebelled against it. I wanted to serve God, but not in that way, not in student ministries. That was foreign to me. I had no clue that you were my examples before anybody else was. And there are thousands and thousands of people who have come to know Christ because I led a few people to Christ, and those people have started churches and ministries and been involved in major evangelism, Great Commission things, and still going on. So what little I did after the great amount of sacrifice you did is now to your credit and now to your blessing and your crowns in glory in heaven. And I can't wait to see you again and to be able to see all that God has blessed you with. I know your lives were not easy. I know after you left the Thomasville area, your life was hard. But you kept on and kept on with each other and loved each other. And your children loved you and your grandkids loved you. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I'm glad, Maxine, I got to talk to you before you went to heaven. But know this, unsung heroes just like Ronnie and Maxine are all around you. Open your eyes. Pull them in to be a part of your programs. Pull them in to honor them privately, publicly, in whatever way you can. And realize that God has appointed people without titles to do His work because their hearts cannot not do it. He has so built in them a God consciousness, and they see the young ones that need Him desperately, and they will sacrifice heaven and earth. They will sacrifice all that they have to make that happen without any education other than the Bible or a few Bible studies, and without money coming into their pockets. They will sacrifice all their money, all that they are. And to their children, I pray a great blessing on them because of all that has happened to me and my family, because they loved me when I was a teenager. Ronnie and Maxine, heaven's gain. You're heaven's gain. Love you. And thanks again for all you did. All right, youth workers, moms and dads, and my friends who listen to this, have an amazing day. Open your eyes to see those unsung heroes around you. Give them a hug. Take them to lunch. Take them to breakfast. Tell them you love them. Tell them you're praying for them. All right. See you next time.
You've been listening to the Youth Worker on Fire podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and tell your friends. Also, leave a comment and tell us what you think. Stay tuned for more informative episodes.